You're not confused, you're avoiding a decision. And the reason this feels uncomfortable is because part of you already knows it's true. You keep telling yourself, I don't know what to do, I need more clarity, I just need more time. But if you were forced to choose right now, no overthinking, no delay, no escape, you would know. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not with certainty, but you would know enough, because the real problem isn't confusion. It's that every clear decision comes with a cost most people don't want to face. Letting go of something, outgrowing someone, admitting you've been wrong, taking responsibility for what happens next. So instead of deciding, you stay in a state that feels safer. Confusion, because confusion gives you something powerful, time without commitment. So let me ask you something, and answer this honestly in the comments. Are you actually confused, or are you avoiding what you already know you have to do? Because once you see this clearly, you lose the ability to lie to yourself. Confusion feels real. That's what makes it dangerous. It doesn't feel like avoidance. It doesn't feel like fear. It feels like you're being careful, thoughtful, responsible, like you're trying to make the right decision. But look closer. When you're truly confused, you explore. You test, you move, even if it's imperfect. But that's not what most people do. They pause, they wait, they circle the same thoughts over and over again, without actually getting closer to a decision. And that's the difference. Real confusion leads to movement. Avoidance leads to stagnation. One creates progress. The other creates delay disguised as thinking. This is why you can spend days, weeks, even months figuring things out, and still be in the exact same place. Because the goal was never clarity. The goal was protection. Protection from making the wrong choice. Protection from discomfort. Protection from consequences. So your mind creates a loop. You think about it, you analyze it, you reconsider it, but you never close it. And as long as it stays open, you don't have to face what comes after the decision. That's why confusion becomes a habit. Not because you don't know, but because not knowing feels safer than acting. I just need more clarity. That sounds reasonable. It sounds responsible. It even sounds intelligent. But most of the time, it's not true. Because clarity doesn't come before the decision, it comes after you commit to one. This is where people get trapped. They believe they need to feel certain first, so they keep waiting. More information, more signs, more confidence. But none of that resolves the real problem. Because the issue isn't lack of information, it's resistance to the outcome. Think about it. There are decisions in your life right now that you've been thinking about for a long time. Not hours, not days, but weeks, maybe months. And yet nothing changes. Not because you don't understand the situation, but because deciding would force something to shift. It would force you to act, to let go, to take responsibility. And once that happens, you can't go back to not knowing. That's the real reason clarity feels so far away. Because clarity closes the door. It removes alternatives. It makes things real. So your mind delays it, not by saying I'm afraid, but by saying something much more acceptable. I just need more clarity. And just like that, you stay in motion without moving. Your brain doesn't want clarity. It wants safety, and clarity is dangerous. Because the moment something becomes clear, you lose the ability to ignore it. You lose the excuse, you lose the ambiguity, you lose the space to pretend you don't know. And from that point on, you have to act. That's why your mind resists it. Not consciously, not in a way you easily notice, but through subtle patterns, overthinking, endless analysis, revisiting the same possibilities, imagining different outcomes, again and again. It feels productive, but it's not. It's a loop designed to delay commitment, because commitment creates exposure. Exposure to failure, exposure to discomfort, exposure to consequences you can't fully control, and your brain is wired to avoid that. So instead of pushing you toward a decision, it keeps you in a state where nothing is finalized, where everything is still possible, because possibility feels safe. As long as nothing is decided, nothing is lost, Nothing is at risk, but there's a hidden cost. While you stay in possibility, your life stays paused. No direction, no movement, no real change, just potential that never turns into reality. You already know enough. Not everything, not perfectly, but enough to move. And that's what makes this uncomfortable. Because once you admit that, you lose the justification for staying where you are. Think about the decisions you've been avoiding. You don't need more information to start. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need certainty. What you need is to accept what the decision will cost you. Because that's what's really holding you back, not confusion. Cost. Every real decision removes something. A version of your life. An option you've been holding on to. A path you won't be able to return to. And that loss feels real, even if what you're letting go of is something that no longer fits you. So instead of deciding, you keep everything open. You stay in between, not fully committed, not fully moving. Because as long as nothing is closed, you don't have to feel the loss. But here's the truth most people avoid. Indecision is not neutral. It's a decision in itself. And it comes with its own cost, time, energy, opportunities that slowly disappear while you're still thinking about it. So the question is no longer, what's the right decision? The real question is, what am I trying not to lose? The more you avoid decisions, the more you train your mind to hesitate. And over time, that hesitation stops being a phase. It becomes who you are, not consciously, but through repetition. Every time you delay, every time you think about it later, every time you leave something open, you reinforce a pattern. I don't act when it matters. And identity is built exactly like that. Not through what you say you want, but through what you consistently allow. So even if part of you wants change, another part starts expecting you not to follow through. You stop trusting your own intentions. You stop believing your own plans because deep down you've seen the pattern too many times. You start, but you don't close. You think, but you don't decide. You want, but you don't commit. And that creates something subtle but extremely destructive. Internal doubt. Not doubt about the world, not doubt about others. Doubt about yourself. About whether you'll actually do what you know you should do. And once that doubt is installed, even simple decisions feel heavier. Because now it's not just about choosing, it's about overcoming the version of you that expects you to hesitate. Most people think taking time to decide is a sign of intelligence, that the longer you analyze, the better your decision will be. But in many cases, that's not intelligence, it's hesitation disguised as control, because there's a difference between thinking and avoiding. Thinking moves you closer to a decision. Avoiding keeps you circling it. And if you're honest, you can feel the difference. There are moments where you're actually processing, and there are moments where you're just delaying, revisiting the same thoughts, replaying the same scenarios, looking for certainty that will never come. Because here's the truth, no important decision feels completely safe. There will always be risk. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be something you can't predict. So if your standard is, only decide when I'm sure, so you'll stay stuck. Not because you're careful, but because you've set a condition that can't be met. And this is where maturity comes in. Mature decisions are not made from certainty. They're made from sufficiency. You don't wait until you know everything. You move when you know enough. Enough to understand the direction, enough to accept the cost, enough to take responsibility. That's what separates movement from stagnation, not intelligence. Not information, but the willingness to act before everything feels resolved. You don't get out of this pattern by thinking better. You get out by deciding faster, not recklessly, not impulsively, but by changing one rule. You stop reopening decisions. That's where most people lose control. They decide them and then revisit. They choose and then question. They commit and then negotiate. And every time you do that, you weaken the decision. You turn something solid into something flexible, something optional. So the goal is not to make perfect decisions, it's to make decisions that stay closed. Once you choose, you move. No constant evaluation, no emotional check-ins, no daily reconsideration. Because the moment you keep reopening things, Your mind goes back into the loop. What if? Maybe? Should I change? And suddenly, you're not progressing anymore. You're thinking again. That's why a single rule changes everything. Once decided, don't revisit. Not immediately. Not emotionally. Give your decision time to exist in reality. Because clarity doesn't come from thinking more. It comes from seeing what happens after you act. And that only happens when you stop interrupting the process. One real decision changes more than the situation. It changes how you see yourself. Because the moment you stop hesitating, you break a pattern that was controlling everything else. Think about it. If you finally make a decision you've been avoiding, something shifts immediately. Not outside, inside. There's less noise, less tension, less of that constant background pressure. Because the loop is gone, that open cycle in your mind is finally closed. And that creates something powerful. Mental space. Space that was being consumed by indecision. Space that you didn't even realize you were losing every day. And once that space is free, your mind reorganizes. You think clearer. You act faster. You hesitate less in other areas too. Because your brain learns something new. That loop doesn't need to exist. That's how change spreads. Not by forcing yourself in every area, but by breaking the pattern in one. One decision that doesn't get reopened. One commitment that doesn't get negotiated. And suddenly you're not the same person anymore. Not because everything is solved, but because you stopped avoiding. When you stop avoiding decisions, you don't feel lighter immediately. You feel exposed. Because for a long time, indecision was protecting you from choosing wrong, from being judged, from facing consequences you couldn't control. And once that protection is gone, everything feels more real, more direct. There's no buffer anymore. No maybe. No we'll see. No I'm still figuring it out. Just reality. And for a moment, that can feel uncomfortable, even heavy. But something else starts to happen. You feel grounded. Not because everything is easy, but because everything is clear. There's no more internal conflict pulling you in different directions. No more energy being wasted trying to keep options open. You chose. And now your mind can finally align with that. That's the part most people never experience. Because they never stay long enough after the decision. They escape back into uncertainty before this stability can form. But when you stay, when you let the decision exist without constantly questioning it, you start to feel something different. Control. Not over everything, but over yourself. And that changes the way you move through life. Because now, you're not trying to avoid discomfort. You're able to handle it. In the end, this was never about confusion. It was about avoidance. Because confusion keeps everything open, and open feels safe. No commitment, no loss, no consequences. Just possibilities. But possibilities don't build a life. Decisions do. And every time you avoid one and you're not staying in place, you're drifting, slowly, quietly, away from the life you say you want. Not because you chose the wrong path, but because you refuse to choose any. And that's the cost no one talks about. Not failure. Delay. A life that never fully starts because nothing is ever fully decided. So stop asking yourself, what's the perfect decision? That question keeps you stuck. Ask something else. What am I avoiding? Because the moment you answer that honestly, and you'll see something clearly. You don't need more time. You don't need more clarity. You need to decide. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it's not perfect. Even if it closes doors. Because every real decision does. But it also opens something most people never reach. Direction. And once you have direction, you don't need certainty anymore. If this made you realize something about yourself, leave a comment. I decide. Because the moment you stop hiding behind confusion is the moment your life starts moving.